G'day everyone, it is Jai, that Aussie metal guy here with Crannk.com. So tonight, wherever you are in the world, it's a great pleasure that I have the honour to speaking with one of the most iconic voices in metal since forming back in 1988. Paradise Lost have carved out a legacy as the pioneers of Gothic metal, blending doom, melody and bleak atmosphere across 17 studio albums. Can you believe it? From Gothic to Draconian Times and Obsidian, they've constantly evolved, influenced countless artists and were made kings of the dark side. Now in 2025, they returned with Ascension out September 19th via Nuclear Blast, a monumental record that captures despair, hope, and everything in between. Nick, thank you so much for joining me, my friend.
Thanks, man. What an intro.
Absolute bloody pleasure, mate. I love fucking doing these, dude. Ascension does.
It's we sound like Bond villains or something.
I love doing these, dude. I get them a
Yeah, it's
lot,
great.
man. I like to put in a little bit of work with the intros and the research, my friend. And
Oh, good.
I've ever since I've gotten to metal, I've heard about Paradise Lost, man. I'm fucking 45 now, and listening to metal most of my adult life and
Yeah.
teenage life as well. And Paradise Lost has been a name that's kind of always been there, a band that I got into my early days. What still excites you and drives you to create new music after all these years?
I, we've never stopped doing it since we were teenagers, so we haven't had a time to. We haven't really sat around long enough to get pissed off with anything. So we just keep moving. Um, I mean, sometimes when bands if they split up, then they kind of they always kind of reform because they remember how good it was or how much fun they had. And I think there's a kind of youthful teenage element that never really dies. It's like a spark and it just stays there. I mean, obviously, visually that's long gone, but the spark is still inside somewhere. So that kind of drives us forward to carry on, you know.
Yeah, the spark actually gets a little bit brighter as you get older, I've noticed.
Yeah,
The title Ascension
yeah.
does suggest striving towards something higher, but with a grim inevitability of death, something that Paradise Lost have always tackled with a lot of their songs. How did that idea shape your lyrics and themes this time for the album?
I don't know. I mean, I've always written about life, and it's basically about there's so much luck involved in life, and you know, some of the nicest people have the worst luck, and the worst people have the best luck, and there's just so much of that, and I just see it so often, and it's almost like walking along a pole and someone's trying to poke you off it as you're balancing on it, like a Squid Game type sort of thing. That's kind of what I think life's a bit like. So I mean, a lot of the lyrical approach is about that aspect of about, and the title is just about trying to do make the best job that you can, and we're only here for a very brief time, and it's more about just doing the best you can in the time you got against all odds. So yeah, but I mean, like I say, there's a lot. We have a lot of hindsight because we're kind of in probably the last. I was going to say the last quarter of our life, but it's probably even less than that now. But you get the general idea.
Yeah, I've had a few near death experiences the last few years, and I think tackling mortality and looking at it, the big picture kind of is really freeing and liberating, and something that you guys have always done really quite well.
Yeah, I mean, I'd sort of look at. I mean, I do. For me, when I write lyrics, it's more about the artistic, perhaps the poetic element. It's
Yeah.
not a case of well, this is and I don't like to read black and white things. I like things to have more meaning and more thought provoking. And I don't like saying open to interpretation because it's a lazy answer, but it does work quite often, even though I don't like to use that.
Yeah, and the cover art does use George Frederick Watt's The Count of Death. Why did that particular piece resonate with you and the band for the release of this album?
Well, I mean, we always wanted to use like one of the old master type paintings because we love that, and
Yeah.
particularly the Renaissance kind of period where everyone's kind of looking up to heaven in every single drawing. We just love that aspect, and we're big fans of Gothic imagery and all that. You know, we're big fans of that, and it's Greg came across this painting, and a lot of the time you can't get clearance on them, but we managed to get clearance on it. So yeah, and it kind of ties in with the whole thing about life and death and the baby is in the lap of death and shrouded by death, and it's just kind of showing that there's no protection from it, no matter what. And that's what the kind of the paintings kind of surmises. But more importantly, for us to use that, it was more about getting that old master kind of vibe going with it because we always wanted to do that, and we haven't done it yet. So
Yeah, it does definitely match the album's themes as well with what you guys are going from. And that opener, Serpent of the Cross, it does capture both hope and anguish. Tell me a little bit about that track.
well, I mean, the cross represent in this. I was kind of doing it symbolic, where the cross represents prosperity and the serpent represents negativity, and it's again what I said. I mean, the video represents the butterfly, which is classed as innocence, but weirdly enough, the video director completely went off with the original synopsis that I gave for it, which I was kind of glad because I liked what he did with it. He turned the kind of moth into kind of some kind of super iconic thing that became like some kind of it's kind of weird, but I like it. I really like what he did with it. But the original thing was about the innocence, and then the moth flies over such elements of destruction, and at the end, the moth also dies. So it basically goes back to saying that everything comes back to death eventually, no matter how good it is.
It's
So everything's about the kind of like again the peaks and troughs of life, but ultimately it's death.
yeah, the duality and the circle of life.
Yeah.
It leads perfectly into
Sorry, go on. Sorry.
it leads perfectly into Silence Like the Grave, which was the other single that kind of came off it as well. It's described as addressing the futility of war. I think I was reading somewhere. Tell me a little bit about this track.
It was kind of more about kind of building something and then knocking it down and then building it again. And it's almost like a kind of not learning from mistakes and kind of refusing to learn from mistakes and then just history repeating itself and the same thing happening again and again. And I guess if you live long enough, you kind of see these things happening. And it's not just war; it's a lot of other things as well. It's like council decisions, and just anything where it just seems like something's been decided and then they just start again, and it's exactly the same as it was before, but perhaps a different shape or something. And it's just about kind of pointlessness of destroying something and starting again, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm gonna talk about the other single as well because that's I love the way before I jump into that, I love the way that you guys balance that real brutal heavy stuff and also the melody. Tell me a little bit about you and Greg kind of balancing that as well.
I think a lot of it's. I mean, the way Greg plays guitar. He's always done that. He's got a real specific style how he plays, and he's always done it since we started the band. And we kind of that element, the kind of sad guitar line or melodic sad guitar line. That's always been a real staple in the band since we started. Particularly like song "Serpent on the Cross." That's really got that element, and it's very typical of Paradise Lost. And it's almost like the hallmark is Greg's that melodic kind of lead thing he does. So. But obviously, then it goes back into the heavy stuff. But I mean, I guess it's just something we've always done, and it just works so nicely. But a lot of it's down to how Greg plays guitar, I think, because he's very specific the way he plays, because he doesn't really have any guitar idols either. There's not one guy he would kind of pin down. He just generally does what he does, and he likes a few guys. That's about it.
Yeah, well, I definitely probably could say that without a doubt that Greg's the idol of a few guitarists out there in the world, that's for sure. And I was talking about Tyrant Serenade, and I wanted to mention that duality as well, because that kind of takes on the mourning and memory as well. Tell me a little bit about that track.
It's more. I guess it's more about if when you're going through a death, it's just about things that remind you of them and these pleasant memories. And usually I find from experience when the seasons change, that reminds me of the person a lot. And I remember what I was doing them at the time the seasons changed. But then you get the sadness of the fact that they're not there anymore. And that's the kind of sting in the tail at the end. So it's more about the kind of remembering people and I've always, I mean, my father died 25 years ago, but I still think of him when the seasons change, I still think about it. So, and I guess, you kind of learn to live with it and you're not kind of, the sadness kind of does fade, but it's still, it's about that. But I mean, getting to the age that we're at now, we're not too far away from death because people start dropping like flies. So you just don't know who's next. It could be me. So
I know, mate. I've recently just went through all that shit. I just thought fought stage 4 cancer through fucking 2023 as well. I'm very lucky to still be here. And
Oh, well,
albums
no.
like this one and your tracks really hit fucking home, man. And it was just
So,
a really great album to dive into. And tracks like Savage Days, I want to talk about a couple of the ones that haven't been released because that track, Savage Days, is an absolute ripper. I've only had a few days to really kind of digress into the album, but I've been leaning in towards that one today. Tell me about that one, man.
I mean, that song was written, I think it's quite an old song. I think we wrote that probably before the pandemic, or we started to write it before the pandemic.
Yeah.
There's a couple of songs that are quite different on this album, and I can tell definitely they were written before the pandemic. And then we changed our approach slightly, but this is one that was kind of it's reminiscent of something we might have done around the mid 2000s era kind of vibe to it.
Yeah.
But it's a lot different to the other tracks as well, because I mean that's one of the key things was trying to make the album more varied, and it's got more of an acoustic vibe to it. And it's all clean, and it's obviously swathed in melancholic.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, that's more about like I said, it's more about learning to live with something rather than expecting to heal from something. It's about you've got to live with it, and it's not about you can never heal from some things. You just got to think, okay, well, that's that, and you draw a line under it, and you shelve it, but it's still there, and it's kind of about that. And the Savage Day being the day when it's kind of hitting you hard, and you're thinking about it too much. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Great message for a lot of these songs as well, between the lines as well. You did kind of mention there this was the longest kind of you had the gap between you guys, and I know you guys have been making albums forever. But tell
Yeah.
me a little bit about that kind of gap between making albums and what was that like?
It's usually, I mean, when you start out, can you do an album every year because you're not really touring. So then when you start building up a fan base, then you tour, and then the more successful you get, the more you tour. So eventually you end up being like Metallica and Def Leppard, and you do one every 10 years. So for everybody else, you do one about every 3 years, which is what we usually kind of do. But we had the 2 years with the pandemic where no one did anything. So it was basically led us up to about 5 years. But I mean, a touring cycle is usually about 18 months depending on how many times you go back to America or how many times you go back to Europe. So yeah, it works out, and before you know it, you've done 17, 18 albums, and you've been around for 37 years, which
Yeah.
goes remarkably fast.
Yeah, and speaking of touring cycles, what's the chance of Australia getting you over here? And I know you've probably been asked by just about every Aussie that's fucking interviewed you over the last week.
Yeah, I mean, when the opportunity arises and everything works out, then I mean, we 100% want to come back to Australia. We love visiting Australia. We've been a few times, but we
Yeah.
never stay long enough. And before we know it, we're back in the UK again. But yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to do. Yeah, absolutely. If the opportunity arises, we're definitely there. But hopefully, in the next year or two, the opportunity arises. So for sure.
Yeah, and the album Last Album for Guido, Jeff stepped back into the role of drums as well. Tell me a little bit about that process. What was that like? Because I know Guido done this album and Jeff's kind of just come back in, yeah?
Yeah, well, I mean, Jeff's always been kind of in the wings. I mean, Jeff left the
Yeah,
band because he wanted to embrace family life more and see his kid growing up, and now
I know.
they're all adults now. So yeah, then we've always kind of stayed in touch with him anyway. So it was kind of very natural for him to kind of hop back behind the drum kit, So yeah, I mean, he's done the last kind of 6 months with us. That we had a very heavy US, sorry, a European festival schedule, which he's just completed. We did the King Diamond tour as well that we just completed. So then, yeah, no, it's great. Like I said, we've always been mates. We never left on bad
Yeah.
ill feeling anyway. So it's totally natural and feels really great that he's back.
Exactly. And then with the album just around the corner, what guys you got on the cards for like tour and plans for the album release?
We'll be touring in October. We've got I think a month touring for that, and then I guess we'll be looking at stuff, perhaps America around early next year, and then we'll probably do other places in Europe that we didn't do on the first time round. So I would imagine it's going to be at least another year and a half or something. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's going to be. We'll see what happens, but we'll just get this year over with. So yeah, October's when we do the European tour anyway.
Yeah, no worries. Favorite track off the album this week, and I know it's like picking a favorite child.
I would say it's Serpent on the Cross, purely because it's just kind of the classic PL vibe to it, like I was talking about earlier. And for me, it's the one I always kind of liked best when we were recording it. So I will say that. But I mean, obviously, like you say, it is like picking your children. But off the top of my head, I'd say that one.
Yeah. Nick, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a real honor, mate. Ascension, everyone is out September 19th via Nuclear Blast Records. It is a record that shows what Paradise Lost remains untouchable in marrying heaviness, atmosphere, and raw human emotion. Nick, congratulations on now album number 17. Any last words, shout outs, thank yous, or anything else you'd like to add in there, mate?
Just thanks. I hope everyone enjoys the album, and we hope we can get over to Australia sooner than later. So yeah, and yeah, please check out the album, and we all hope you like it.